Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the RocketMSP Podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host, and I am joined today by two gentlemen from Green Cloud Defense. One is Steve Sims, and the other is Keith Coker. I'm pointing the wrong direction because everything's mirrored and it's weird. But yes, Steve, Keith, thanks so much for joining us. And fill us in, because I had a conversation with Green Cloud a while ago, and I think something's changed. I just can't put my finger on it.
Well, just about a month ago, Steve and his company actually joined the Green Cloud team. We went through a rebranding to become Green Cloud Defense, to where security suite of services will be a core offering for Green Cloud as we go forward.
Very cool. All right, so let's talk about that, because I'm gonna say before and after, like, some magical thing happened, right? So basically, Green Cloud and another company mergers and acquisition, fun times. And before that, I feel like you guys were very much like a data center and co-location type of company.
Yeah, so what our core business was prior to this was providing cloud-based services to managed service providers across the country. So, managed service providers who didn't want to go out and build their own infrastructure and devote both the capital resources and the intellectual talent to running their cloud infrastructure could partner with us, go to market with us, and basically get a product that they could deliver to their end customers seamlessly without all of the hassle of trying to build it themselves.
And so because of that, like, are you not doing that anymore, or?
We're absolutely still doing that. What
Okay.
led us to the decision to go out and partner with Cascade Defense was, we'd become a trusted advisor, technology partner for over 300 MSPs across the country, and our hands-on approach to support with those guys. They were pushing us to develop a security service and couple that with our cloud service such that they had one less vendor to work with delivering a holistic solution. And so as opposed to developing that internally, Steve and his team had spent the last several years building a suite of security services that it made sense to bring that in and really acquire the talent that he had put together over the last few years.
Okay. Now, we're already getting comments in the chat here. So I'm just going to bring this up for us to talk about for a second. So there's a gentleman here that says he's working to bring more and more things offline. In this day and age, he cannot trust cloud services, most cloud services. And I don't think I blame him for that. With things happening over at big companies like SolarWinds and FireEye and Microsoft. I mean, who can we trust, and why can we trust you? You know what I mean?
Well, it's one of those adages where, when we look at the security landscape, you know, cloud providers are a larger target because there's a lot of consolidated customers, much like what we saw in the MSP RMM space, where RMMs were getting attacked because, being able to breach a single entity would then give you entree into 50 to, several hundred customers. And so I think when you look at it, we have a deep bench of security talent that most, call it, 5 to 20 person MSP shops probably don't want to field that level of talent and hold them there for their base. And so we're able to acquire that talent and hold it internally, and then allow the MSPs to leverage that expertise. So while, yes, there have been breaches, when you look at the totality of the breaches among premise environments, with ransomware attacks and things like that, there's been a substantial uptick across the board, not only in cloud services, but in all services being attacked. I mean, it's become big businesses for people to find breaches and to extort, money out of these businesses.
And, one great way to make sure that doesn't happen to you or your clients is to pull all of your stuff off the cloud.
Well, I would say that whether you're in the cloud or whether you're on premise, there's the same, vector applies. People are, for us, when we go to, deploy in our cloud environment, every customer is segmented with its own networking, its own firewalled environment. And so from a networking standpoint, it looks like a premise environment. So there's not, there's very little space on the attack vector for someone to come through back-end systems from a networking standpoint. And so if you look at the level of sophistication we're able to deploy, in a cloud basis, and then you look at a simple small business customer and what they're able to maintain on a premise basis, they become they're a lot more exposed, quite frankly, because they can't dedicate the resources or the expertise to keeping themselves up to date. And I think when you look at, the from a security standpoint, right, you've got two kind of paths that you can think about. One is, are you a high value target, meaning people are willing to expend great effort to get to you because you have some type of information that's of significant value. And then at the other end of the spectrum, are you the least common denominator to be attacked, in that mass attacks are able to pick you out because you're more vulnerable than the people that are around you. And so I think what's happened is, years ago people were protected because everybody was on a similar playing field. Well, the bad actors got more intelligent, and people have deployed more security services. And as you deploy more security services, you have to continue that process because you don't want to get left behind. You want to be at least as secure as the average person, or else now you're on the low end, you're an easy target. And so what we're doing, what we feel like, we have different grades of products that people can deploy, because it is an additional expenditure for end customers to bite off to secure themselves. Mm-hmm. But if they don't make these expenditures and they end up on the low end of the pole, then they're going to be the ones that are primarily looked at to attack because they're the most vulnerable.
All right. So before we dive in too far into the security stuff, I just want to establish, we'll call it the basement, right? So let's build a foundation here of who is Green Cloud. That way people can get to know you guys a little better. And I'm sorry, who's Green Cloud Defense? I'm sorry, that's going to be hard for me to do. So if I do it again, I will do it again, and I apologize. All right, so Green Cloud Defense, do you guys have any investors, or is it a wholly privately owned company?
So we do have investors. Just to give a little background on the company, we'll be celebrating 10 years this year. So we've been around. And so as you're having problems saying Green Cloud Defense, I have a decade worth of learning that I've got to undo to get to Green Cloud Defense as well. So if I say it up, I apologize. But we are investor backed. And so we have a number of individual investors that have been with us from early on. And then our primary lender is Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs. I've never heard of them. Have you heard of them, guys?
Just small guy.
They're small. That's okay.
Yeah, just a tiny little bank.
They actually entered the company in 2018, and they've been a good partner for the last 3 years.
That's very cool. So with Green Cloud Defense, that is more like on the cybersecurity front than it is on the cloud hosting front, correct?
So the way we kind of looked at it is we have an established cloud hosting practice that we've been growing at a steady clip for the last 10 years. We know that much like the sentiment that was shared, people, there's skepticism and there's a need for additional security when deploying cloud. And so what we're transitioning to is more of a secure cloud service so that, you, the MSP, do not have to secure the cloud that you're purchasing for your end customer. We will actually take on a significant portion of that burden, add the security parameters around it, as well as deploy premise-based security where needed for non-cloud customers.
And that was going to be a follow-up question. So there are going to be some people that just don't want or need to use your cloud, but they still have a need for security.
Absolutely.
So you'll be able to help those people out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a big, sorry to jump in,
Please.
but I think a big part of, the rebranding and changing the name of of Green Cloud to Green Cloud Defense post Cascade Defense acquisition is we really want to say that, hey, we're still offering all of these great cloud services that we've always offered. But we want to show that we are taking security, as an utmost upfront kind of a priority in everything that we do moving forward. So as I come into the organization, Keith has kind of asked me to take a look at, hey, what are we doing today? How can we further increase and improve our security across the entire environment and integrate into the most basic level of services and capabilities that we offer, integrate security right there at the forefront. Whereas, a lot of cloud providers, to, some folks in the comments, especially these public side, that's 100% on you. You need to have a security plan when you move into the cloud. We want to provide a little bit of that capability so that when you come and you take a look at Green Cloud Defense from a cloud perspective, you're saying, all right, I know that these guys are taking security seriously up front, and I can trust that they're gonna help us along the way.
So what pre-acquisition merger, whatever it was, what did Cascade Defense do?
So Cascade Defense was a Fortinet focused MSSP. So we offered managed security services surrounding the Fortinet product portfolio. So if you're aware of anything about the Fortinet product portfolio, it's vast. They've got a whole lot of different products, all security focused. They do wireless, they do switching, they do a lot of different things with a security focus from the start, right?
Mm-hmm.
So rather than just building a router or a stateful firewall that does, just policy-based stuff, they're adding security functionality from the get-go. And that goes down to wireless APs, that goes down to the switching infrastructure. Everything is security-focused and giving the utmost ability to have visibility into the organization in that environment. So we based our security services around that. So we offered... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask types of stuff you offered, so again, just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So primarily it was managed firewall, switching, and wireless. And the reason we wanted to do those three things is we saw kind of a spot in the market, especially in SMB and this space where MSPs play, in that organizations aren't necessarily taking the time to have good visibility into that environment and pay attention to the security of that edge appliance, right? A lot of people describe firewalls as set it and forget it type of devices where you set your policy and I don't need to back out of that policy. I don't need to change it. I don't need to improve it. I don't need to do anything, right? So our idea was, hey, let's go in, let's take a look at your business processes. Let's limit this down as much as possible and limit your exposure and risk there. And then, it moves away from being the set it and forget it device into a real living thing, just like the business is, right? So we're actually taking time to learn the environment, taking time to understand what needs to happen in order for business to operate. And then we're taking the security approach toward that in order to secure those devices. And we're, offering your standard type of managed firewall service, but we're doing it from a security mindset up front. So we're having those discussions about, hey, we want to move into the cloud. We don't trust it, or we don't, feel good about moving to this SaaS platform. How can you guys help us secure it from the firewall, from the switching, from the wireless side, from the endpoints, and how can you do that? So we really kind of try to partner with organizations to have those discussions because, a lot of people, unfortunately, still sit in that mindset of, hey, this is a set it and forget it appliance, and once my security's in place, that's it.
And Steve, one thing that kind of led us to Cascade that was a little bit different, we have a very hands-on approach with our partners, and that's one of the things that we kept hearing repeatedly from the MSPs, that had purchased kind of competing security services, is they were getting a lot of data but not a lot of information, and so they were getting so much data thrown at them that the ability for them to digest it and create actionable task off of it was very difficult. And so one of the things that Steve and team had done was to build out a SOC that had monthly interactions with all their clients, which took kind of the burden of processing those data sets out of the hands of the end customers, and gave them kind of almost like a CISO level interaction at an end customer level on a monthly basis to kind of let them know what was happening in their environment, what items they needed to respond to. One of the big requests we had from our MSP base was, as we were building this service, to make sure that we didn't place any substantial burden on them to dissect data, but we gave them tasks that could be very actionable by their techs to support their end customers.
Okay, now this sounds very complicated, and it's so complicated. Like, I'm just not gonna do it because I don't have time for all that stuff, guys. Like, my clients will probably be fine, right? I don't.
Most of your clients probably will be fine, but the one that doesn't.
All right.
Yeah, that's. I hate to say it, but it used to be, the probability of a customer getting hit was low, and quite frankly, a lot of MSPs took the approach of, it's not going to happen to me. But now,
and it wasn't. It wasn't going to happen to us.
When you look across our 300 MSPs, we have a number of them that have been, have end customers, not necessarily cloud customers, but customers that they support that that have been breached in some way, whether it be ransomware attacks or something more nefarious. And so we hear these stories, and us moving into the security space was not a build it and they will come strategy. I mean, we have been pushed by a large percentage of our partners to get this service rolled out and give them a customer friendly service that they can consume.
All right. Let's talk about your team for a moment. Where is everyone located? Are they in the U.S.?
Yes, they're all domestically located.
All right. And are they all employees, or any of them subcontractors or outsourced?
Yeah, essentially everyone that a partner will talk to is an employee. We have one or two 1099s that we use from time to time, but everyone in the support stack is an employee of Green Cloud.
Okay. And compliance. Do you guys do anything today with compliance, or is your service or your data center, or however you want to look at it, is it meeting certain compliance like SOC or any of that type of stuff?
So we have kind of as a base service, as a base layer, SOC 3, which is encompassing of SOC 2 Type 2. We have ISO 27001, and we have PCI DSS compliance. And so we have all of this for our environment, but the way we kind of couch our service is, being a subcontractor to the end customer, we provide many tool sets that allow that end customer to become compliant, but we cannot by ourselves make that end customer compliant. But we make that process much, much simpler with us than without us.
Got it. And let's talk about some other security stuff that's like around your product. Mm-hmm. So with the cloud, like you're kind of hosting our data, right? Mm-hmm. And who can access that data? Like at the end of the day, can your employees, like if they needed to provide us tech support, can they remotely log into one of the VMs and technically see all of our files?
So that is a decision that each MSP makes on each individual customer, whether we have access to, at what level access we can get information. Many of our support, kind of the base level of our support goes to the hypervisor level, which means we won't necessarily have credentials for the VMs that are running inside of that hypervisor.
Nice.
And customers may encrypt that data such that we have no access to the data. We have MSPs who leverage our services a little more and have us help them troubleshoot from time to time VM problems, VM issues, and they will provide us credentials at that time to hop on and help them troubleshoot, but we do not store nor maintain those credentials on a permanent basis.
Okay. Now, let's talk more about. More about security surrounding. For the MSPs to like set something up, is there a portal? Can we like self-provision things?
So a basic service can be self-provisioned. We do have a multi-tenant portal that customers are able to place orders and turn up services. With the recent acquisition of Cascade Defense, we have not fully automated those products yet, so there's still a little bit of work to do there. But you can get a base cloud service instantiated with security services around them through our portal.
And do you have 2FA to get into the portal, optional or required?
It is, I'm trying to think. I think we have recently made it required.
Aha! Now, as long as that's true, I'm proud of you.
There was a long debate about that, let me tell you. Because it shot up the number of password requests.
All right, so someone here said, I would probably want to allow for credentials for password resets, but leave the data encrypted. So I guess I want to follow up with that. If they're letting you have credentials and they're asking you to do password resets, like they're paying you for remote hands, I assume. So that's a very expensive password reset.
So let's make sure there's multi-levels of passwords and what I was referring to. So we have our outside portal, which you can see holistically all of your services. And then as you bury in, you get credentials for each individual customer tenant can have its own set of credentials, which manages the compute and storage layer. And then the VMs inside of there, which are typically Windows VMs, have their own set of credentials. We maintain access to the credentials up through the hypervisor. So we have passwords for the portal. We have passwords for the compute and storage resources that can be assigned. It's the VM or the Microsoft passwords on the VMs themselves that I was referring to that we wouldn't maintain. But would request them if they want us to help troubleshoot them.
Got it. Now, let's talk about the cloud here for a second. So you guys have basically, started building out this data center and building, I'm going to call it your own private cloud, even though it's publicly accessible and you resell it and all that stuff. But like you're making your own, I'll call it like miniature Azure, basically, right?
Yeah, so we run 6 different data centers now across the country.
Okay.
And it is VMware based. And so if people do not want to refactor their applications to fit in a public cloud, and they have been running historically in a VMware environment, we can typically consume those with very little effort, more of a lift and shift, as opposed to a refactoring effort, as well as most MSPs have a good knowledge of VMware and how it works, as opposed to having to learn new vernacular and new networking techniques inside of Azure and AWS. And so, many times there's a comfort factor in being able to get customers into a cloud environment without having to completely relearn the environment that they're moving to.
Okay, I like that. That actually makes a lot of sense. So for the people that have traditionally been recommending and managing and setting up and everything VMware base, this is a very easy maneuver if they want to say, you know what, it just doesn't make sense for me to have my client servers at the client site. Maybe they have an internet connection outage. Maybe everyone's working from home still, and maybe they want to get rid of the office, but where do the servers go? So basically, how would that work? Like how would that migration go? Getting our servers from local VMware into the cloud, and how much downtime will there be?
We usually do the cutover over a 2 to 4 hour maintenance window. At this point, we've done literally thousands of those migrations of small businesses over. Our typical situation that we enter into, a managed service provider is typically they've bought a couple of racks at a data center. They built a VMware environment. They're running 4, 5, 6 of their 50 customers inside of that VMware. And so we'll start with things that they've already virtualized into their own hardware. But maybe they don't want to go through a hardware refresh, at that site. Maybe they need additional security measures. Maybe the customers are asking for secondary site recovery, things that they don't necessarily want to make an additional investment in. That's usually our entrance into an MSP, to have them kind of offload that burden of the 4 or 5 customers that they built something for. And so we start out with actually migrating those handful of customers over, doing a couple of thousand of these. We kind of know where the gotchas are. We built nice tool sets to do this migration, and we do a substantial amount of the heavy lifting to stand it up. And essentially what we're doing is we're building a disaster recovery site, and then we're having a managed failover of that disaster recovery site into our environment. And so we'll use tools like Zerto, VMware Availability Suite, some tools as old as like StorageCraft for specific server types. We have a lot of tools at our disposal that we've kind of honed over the years.
So it doesn't matter if we have physical machines, a combination of physical and virtual, or are entirely reliant on VMware.
That's correct.
We can, and it doesn't even matter if we're using like the free or the super cheap version of VMware. You can still get that into. I assume you're using like vSphere, and inside your system, you've probably even got the ability to like use vMotion and that type of stuff to move things from one server to another. That way, if you have a server that needs to be upgraded, you can vMotion everything over to another server. if I recall correctly, I never really got into VMware. I was more of a Hyper-V guy, but I recall vMotion no downtime, right?
That's correct.
So that's awesome. All right, so that means we don't have to deal with hardware when we're hosting with Green Cloud, just like we wouldn't have to if we were in AWS or Azure.
That's
So
correct.
if you love Hyper-V, what's the selling point to consider Green Cloud Defense?
We've never went down the Hyper-V path. So it's one of those things where, for us, we, if someone is completely sold on Hyper-V, we would make the argument that, with us taking care of the hypervisor, that it shouldn't matter what the underlying service is. That burden is on us. But if someone's completely hung up, then Green Cloud Defense is probably not the best place to park the services.
Okay. And if you love Hyper-V and you insist on managing the hypervisor, you can go to a service like Azure where you can deal with the hypervisor and all the craziness that comes with an Azure system.
Yep.
But okay, so let's talk about on the flip side for a second here. Why do I even need a server, man? Like, come on, it's 2021. Shoes practically lace themselves. My skateboard doesn't have wheels, it just hovers. Like, what do I need a server for? Microsoft has Microsoft 365 and, Azure AD. I don't need a server.
The vast majority of our customers have gone through the conversion to Office 365. We have almost no Exchange environments running almost no Exchange servers running inside our environment. So we encourage people to move to Office 365 as part of the conversion into the cloud. As far as other servers, our typical deployment, if you looked across our thousands of customers, it's, we'll run a file server, an AD server, a financial server, and then 2, 3, 4, line of business servers. And most of our customers fit that profile. Many times the line of business services have not, they do not offer a cloud version. And, they have some type of attachment to AD and to file services that are needed to run them. And so having them in the same data center and reducing any of that latency that you would get to an off-premise or another site for file services actually makes those legacy applications run better.
Okay.
The other thing to think about there too is, when looking at moving to SaaS platforms, and this is a big piece of what we have offered is, and as part of the Green Cloud Defense team, is secure SD-WAN. Having the ability to ensure that even if you do move up to a SaaS platform, you have the ability to secure it and have that highly available environment where you're using redundant internet connections, where you're using some SD-WAN capability to ensure performance out to those SaaS applications that might be out there, such as Office 365 or Salesforce or whatever it might be, right? So if you make the decision to not move into the cloud, because it just doesn't make sense for what you're trying to do, there's options to continue to improve your security surrounding that, using things like secure SD-WAN, using things like cloud access security brokers or what's called CASBs, those kinds of things in order to secure your access to the SaaS platform. So I think a big piece is, hey, cloud works for a whole lot of people, and the way Green Cloud Defense does cloud works for a whole lot of people. But in those instances where it doesn't, you can still secure that, and the services that we offer can help to do that.
All right, so you mentioned SD-WAN. I love opening this can of worms because I've got some friends who think SD-WAN is snake oil because you can't QoS, you can't quality of service the internet, Steve. And I think that's like exactly what SD-WAN's doing, isn't it?
To a certain
Sort of.
extent. Really, what you're doing is allowing the software to define what your routing is for that specific application or that internet capability, right? So if there are some systems that have direct tie-ins to things like Azure, AWS, Salesforce, Office 365, all of these things. Really, what it comes down to is you're allowing the software to define how it wants to route over the internet. So if you have a circuit that's, you have a whole lot of brownouts on this circuit, and you have, really good throughput, really low latency, 1 minute, and the next minute you don't. And then you have another circuit that seems to only be the opposite, right? It gives you the opportunity to specify, based on application, based on destination of that traffic, which circuit to apply that traffic to in order to give you the best experience out of those services. So to an extent, I agree and understand. But if you have multiple internet circuits and you're able to define, hey, if I have, 50 to 200 milliseconds of latency on this one circuit and this other circuit has 10 to 13, I want to choose this other circuit for this application, for this moment, for this particular session that I'm generating out to this service. And you can do that dynamically. The best part is that software is a whole lot faster and a whole lot smarter than you or I are. And so it's going to make those decisions on a split second, session origination type of time frame, and make those decisions quickly for you. So you're not failing over circuits if you have these brownouts. You just have that ability. So yes, I understand what you're saying. You cannot QoS the internet. It's a big place, but if you have multiple circuits, you can choose how to use those circuits in the most effective manner by using SD-WAN to do that.
Yeah, the way I kind of couch it in my simple terms is it doesn't make bad circuits good, but it picks the best option you have available at the time.
Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the things that you've added recently, some of these services, because it sounds like you've added some like MSSP type stuff, and so far it sounds like it's all based around the hardware, so the Fortinet hardware. Are there any other new services you've added to the MSSP, to the cybersecurity stack here?
So, and Steve can talk through some of these, but I mean, we're still in the integration part with Cascade, but we will have SIM services, EDR services that will be rolling out as multi-tenant services very shortly. And so they are around the Fortinet family of products, but it is more extensive than just hardware-based services or virtual appliance-based services, I guess I should say.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about that a little further. Let's pretend that I'm an MSP. I don't need to host anything in the cloud right now. My clients, everything just seems like it's working perfectly. Knock on wood, right? But I need to start taking security a little bit more seriously. Why do I call you?
I think the primary reason is the reputational value of support. So inside of the MSP community, I think we've built a brand that we're a trustworthy partner. And we don't have direct sales that are competing with them, and that we're not afraid to roll up our sleeves in a true partnership and help them get a service launched, figuring out not only the technical side of it, but also the business side of how you market to your end customers, which customers to go target. So it's really a joint relationship that we try to build. It takes a time. We make a significant investment in new partners as we onboard them. In learning and understanding their businesses to make sure that what we're positioning works for their customer profile and the best way to go target their customers.
All right. That's good, but I still don't feel like I got my question answered. And now I'm going to start beating you guys up. So, let me rephrase the question. I've got a client that has 50 users, and let's just pretend that they're all working in their office and COVID doesn't exist. They're using Office, Microsoft 365. Everything's cloud based through their, they've got Teams and OneDrive and et cetera, right? Everyone's got laptops. Sometimes they do meetings at Panera or uh, take a day to work from home so that they can spend time with the baby or the kids or whatever. Why do I need you to boost their security?
I think where we'd start with that is, as Keith mentioned, we take a significant amount of time in understanding the environment that we're walking into, right? We're going to help them understand where their gaps may be. We have a pretty experienced teams in a whole lot of different aspects of IT, in a whole lot of aspects from both the MSSP or the MSP side as well as the security side, networking. Even just sysadmin for an end user customer. We have guys that have been in all of those scenarios, right? So what we try to do is come in, learn the environment, kind of help them to understand where their gaps might be, and then put together a roadmap to get you from, we have a security program that is kind of a D or an F today, and let's take these, very logical steps to go from that D where we're sitting today with the security that we have in place to an A. And let's build that roadmap to get there. So in your examples, whether that's endpoint detection and response, next gen endpoint protection, whether that's SSL VPN capabilities for those stay at home or remote workers, always on IPsec VPN on the endpoint, securing those connections both into the on-prem environment so that they have access to the resources there in their office space, just like they would if they're sitting in the office, or if they happen to be in the cloud, we can secure those resources as well. So every business is going to be different, right? And so if you don't sit down and take the time to understand what their specific business and use case is, and help them build a roadmap based on that, then you're kind of doing a disservice, and that's where we come in. Is we want to make sure that we get that right and help them increase their business operations capability.
All right, so if I go into the Fortinet website, it doesn't seem like they do endpoint protection. So what are you using to provide that type of service?
So they actually do. They have several products. They have one that is called FortiClient, which actually does some proxy capabilities and some what I would consider legacy endpoint protection. Right, it's doing your signature-based AV, your signature-based IPS, and it's doing some web filtering, content filtering types of capabilities, and that's FortiClient. They actually acquired a company. The years are starting to run together, either last year or the year before, called Ensilo. And Ensilo is a next-gen endpoint protection suite. And so FortiEDR is what that's called. If you get to know the Fortinet realm at all, everything is Forti something. And so FortiEDR is a next-gen endpoint detection and response product where it's not just looking at signature-based attacks. It's looking at the heuristics, the behavior of specific applications on that endpoint, and understanding exactly what is normal, what Notepad should be doing versus what Notepad is doing, right? And finding those abnormalities and blocking that based on various application whitelists, blacklists, various threat intelligence sources and things like that. So that capability is absolutely there.
All right, so security is an onion, right? That's what
Absolutely.
everyone talks about. Security's an onion. You need to have multiple layers. But I've also found that security isn't just one onion. Like security is, maybe it's a sweet onion and a yellow onion and a red onion. Like, you don't want to have just Fortinet products, because one vulnerability might be in multiple products, and it might even span multiple types of products, to where now people can just kind of get right through the whole Fortinet solution. So if you were using like Fortinet hardware and Sophos endpoint protection and Huntress Labs and this and that and whatever else, now you have your collection of onions, your collection of better layers,
Sure.
where now you've got this ridiculousness of logs, and that's where the SOC and SIM really come into play, because they're able to take all of those logs from all the various manufacturers of products and begin correlating that data to, is this an issue we need to be concerned about or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, one of the things, we know that MSPs have specific products that they have spent time and money deploying and quite frankly learning. And so as we roll out, our services, we'll be able to ingest other EDRs. So if there's a MSP who has a concern or has a preference to a specific EDR, we'll actually be able to ingest the feeds from not just the Forti EDR, but from whatever EDR that they have deployed.
All right.
Yeah, I mean,
Now-
the whole idea, and you touched on it, security is an onion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every layer that you add to your defense of that whole defense in depth strategy is giving you more logs. It's giving you more data. It's giving small to medium businesses absolutely don't have the manpower to do it. A lot of MSPs in across the country don't have the manpower or the time to have folks that are able to sit down and look at that. Even if they had a SIM to take action on the number of alerts that they're receiving from their infrastructure, from their customers' infrastructure, is a lot. And that is kind of the whole idea around our SOC as a service, SIM as a service, is like Keith mentioned, make it agnostic. We stick to the Fortinet brand because we understand it, we trust it, we know, we've been doing it for a very long time, and we're in a good spot because of it. That's not everybody, right?
Sure.
And so we have to be agnostic in our approach to bringing in logs. The biggest thing is getting those critical data sources, your domain controller, your endpoint protection, your network WAN edge. Those kinds of logs have to come in, and they're not always going to be Fortinet. So we're ingesting those, we're correlating those events, and finding the behaviors in the environment that point to an indicator of compromise.
Okay. Now, I just want to look through the chat here and see if I've missed any questions. The one question that I saw, it was more along the lines of like, does Green Cloud Defense ever make sense for either the work from home people or maybe just the solopreneur, the business with one person, or even just consumers, residential?
I mean, since we don't sell directly, we sell through MSPs. There may be some area.
And I just want to clarify, for the MSP, can Green Cloud Defense make sense for those types of clients?
There are people who are standalone environments that are sophisticated enough to where it would make sense to.
Okay.
I would say in general, probably not. But, we have entrepreneurs who, are sizable customers with us that are 1-2 person shops. So it's a scenario where if you have, work from home that needs, specific SSL VPN or a specific type of security profile, it may be worth the investment to apply it to, to a single user, for their protection.
Got it. All right. And let's talk pricing. Because, there's a lot of different SOC SIM, EDR, MTR. I mean, all these different acronyms get so confusing, and some place says that they're a SOC and that they have a SIM, but maybe it only does certain types of logs or devices or whatever. So it's even difficult to compare apples to apples, because if we're going to stick with the food analogies, right? Because it's not like all apples are apples, right? You've got your Honey Crisp and your Golden Delicious and your Granny Smith and all these different apples, right? So just because they're all apples, like, hell, you could get 16 apples and they all taste a little different because, I don't know, genetically modified food seeds or whatever, however they do it. So with that, like, I can't really sit here and be like, oh, well, you guys should use Vigilant or you should use Green Cloud Defense, like, because I don't think any of you guys are the same. It's not like comparing ConnectWise PSA to Autotask PSA. Does that make sense?
It does, and trust me, as we've positioned this product in the marketplace, us trying to understand what our competitors are doing and what's actually being delivered versus what the marketing slicks say has been a tough task, quite frankly. We've had to rely much more on what individual MSP partners' experiences have been with these customers than the marketing materials that were put out by anyone. And so, like you said, I mean, it is very, very difficult to do an apples to apples comparison. I think where we kind of hang our hat is we're going to be price competitive. We may not be the cheapest person in town, but we will be competitive with all the offerings that we've seen out there. We have products that are geared from a price point standpoint to the SMB space. So many times in the security framework, you have price points that are focused at the enterprise space and just don't work for the SMBs. And so, we think we have a price point that works in the SMB space that allows the MSP to make margin, or to have a margin on the product and still have a competitive price point to their end customer. And I'll say that was not an easy task. That was not an easy task to get price points. But when you look at both Green Cloud and our company experience prior to that, I mean, that's what we have done time and time and again for the last 25 years, is we've taken enterprise class products and we figured out how to package and support products that SMBs can get enterprise class services at prices they can afford. I mean, that's what we've done our entire career.
Got it. Okay. Now, Steve, I know that you've got very confusing looking screen that you're that you're willing to share with people. Can you kind of lead up to that? And
yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it. What our service is getting to the point where we truly understand our customers' business, right?
Okay.
Understanding where normal traffic exists and where abnormal traffic exists, and what that plays into is, just having the visibility. The whole idea of the SOC SIM is having visibility into all of the different pieces of that onion, right? The entire point of having someone like us manage your firewalls is that we have guys that can sit there and dig through logs to find those abnormal events and alert you proactively to understand, where we need to go, and look in your environment for security risks, or in a lot of cases, where we can find operational IT issues that drive either security risks or just operational ineffectiveness, right? And so what I've got here is, it's not anything incredibly fancy. What we're doing is just showing some of the dashboards, some of the data that we are looking at in order to perform that service, right? We live in the Fortinet set of products. Today, what I'm showing you is what's called the FortiAnalyzer. What my team does is dig through the raw log data, the logs that we are seeing here, to find those anomalies, to find abnormal traffic, and alert on it. So
Got it.
that's kind of what we're looking at here. This is one of our office firewalls that we have that's just collecting a whole bunch of data for us. So, our team is looking, and I'll expand this a little bit here, but our team is looking at things like the countries and the regions of, that we're reaching out to. Where are we seeing some of these, high session counts? What countries are those going to, right? There are obviously a number of countries that we want to be a little bit suspect of if we see that traffic in our environment, right? And so we want to know what that looks like. We want to understand what that is. So, we're constantly looking at the top countries of destination and or sources of traffic that we're looking at. Also, we want to kind of understand what, on kind of a term, or I should say a timeline. What does our trending data look like? This particular set of data here that I'm looking at is over the last 12 hours. So I can kind of see, hey, there wasn't a whole lot of people in the office. Some backups started up. We probably had a couple of people connect to VPN, that kind of thing. And then around 7 o'clock, people started coming into the office, and we see, maybe right here is probably about where we started this screen share and things like that, right? So we're seeing a whole bunch of traffic. We're seeing kind of trending analysis that allows us to determine what is normal and what's abnormal. And we can do this all the way up to 30, 45, 60, 90 days of data, so that we really understand what that trend looks like there. And then, kind of understanding what policies those are hitting and that kind of thing to truly understand the source and destination. And, I've mentioned it a few times, but in getting to understand each individual customer and how they do business and establishing, you brought it up, in the beginning of this, we want to kind of set a baseline. We want to set that foundational level of understanding of an environment, right? And then from that, we can understand how we're going to, respond and work through this environment to make, small changes along the way, along the lifetime of a partnership with that customer in improving the security of their environment. So
Gotcha.
this is one tool that we use to do that. There's a whole lot, but I at least wanted to show the kind of data that we're talking about here.
Now, see, when I look at this data, I know what I'm looking at in the
Sure.
sense of I understand what the source IP and the interface, and I understand every column and what they are.
Sure.
I don't understand how to take all of this information and use it.
Sure, absolutely. And that's where our team helps, right? Our team is taking that information and turning it into something actionable. So we understand that, hey, this source IP address that's on this interface, which obviously I happen to know, it's got 1 million sessions in the last 12 hours, right?
That's a lot of sessions.
That's
But
a whole lot of
10.anything, I'm pretty sure, is an internal IP, so
Exactly.
there's nothing
Exactly.
wrong
So,
with that.
yes and no, right? If a device has command and control malware on it, right? It has some sort of data exfiltration happening, and we want to see, or it's even being used in a botnet. We'll see these types of systems creep up in these lists of either allowed or blocked traffic, and we'll see those sessions increase as they go along, right? So that's the part of picking up by our guys digging into each environment and understanding that particular customer's use case. We see what's normal on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, and so we can pick out those one or two idiosyncrasies, those strange occurrences like you're talking about. If I see, I know that this device over a 12-hour period is going to give me 1.6, 1.7 million sessions, right? If I see another device on my network that might be, on a different interface, my production SSID or something like that, creep up into that million session count, then I know there's a problem. We need to investigate what that looks like. We dig into the traffic, we take a look at that, and we can help that customer determine how to react to that specific incident, right?
Got it.
So it's not just I mentioned it very early on. It's not just set it and forget it. You don't just go into a firewall that's really protecting you from the entire internet. And we have that conversation with a lot of customers out here in the Northwest. We're dealing with North Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, all of these very disparate rural regions, right? And they say, "Oh, I'm in rural Montana. Nobody wants my data." Well, the internet doesn't care where you're at. You're just a number. You're just an address that's out on the World Wide Web for everyone in China, Pakistan, Iran, Russia, et cetera, to access your environment.
Mm-hmm.
Having a mentality of set it and forget it on the appliance that protects you from that, that's a scary mentality. And so we just live by the rule of this is not set it and forget it. We're going to constantly manipulate and manage this environment effectively to increase security effectiveness. And this really is kind of frontline defense against that, right?
So let's talk about the selling side first. So what you said just now, if Yates Network, if you could tell me what state you're in, or even better, maybe major city, put that in the chat, because I'm genuinely curious. Now this guy here, and I'm not picking. I want to. I'm getting bad static again. Is it for both of you guys? Oh, this is crazy. Let me refresh this. I'll be back in like 15 seconds, and then we'll continue that. Hopefully Yates will have put the city.
Sounds great. Oh, they hear it. They hear it on the stream as well.
Okay.
Okay, is it better now?
That's much better.
All right. Oh, this is so frustrating. All right, North Carolina. That's where he's at. So I consider North Carolina to not be in the middle of nowhere. There's a couple of nice big cities there. Yeah, they've got some rural areas with what do they grow? Cane sugar and tobacco, right? That's what I consider the Carolinas. But yeah, I mean, so you've got some businesses that you're supporting that maybe are in the tobacco or dairy or something like that type of industries, and then maybe you're supporting I'll call it the farms, and those might only have a few workstations because most of the workers we'll call them migrant workers, who probably have all their paperwork in order, I'm sure of it. And so there's only a couple machines for you to support. But just because you're in rural America, I mean, they don't care where you are. It's not I'm in North Carolina, I'm in the middle of nowhere. They don't want my stuff. They don't care if you are a dairy farm with one computer, or if you are a top 50 company in the nation. Every business, every IP address is an opportunity to make a fraction of a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So
I think that's the hardest thing for folks to understand. And a lot of times, the thing that I hear a lot is, well, my information is already out there and available on the internet. I said, okay, well, go and hand it to your competitor and see what they think.
Right.
Obviously, you have secrets. You need to protect something. You need to protect your customer information. You need to protect your proprietary information, whatever that might be. Or you just need to protect that information that belongs to and is of your employees, right? That critical, those pieces of critical data. To your point, they don't care whether they get half a Bitcoin on this one or 30 Bitcoin on the next one. It's part of a Bitcoin, right? Or it's some level of effect on someone else. They don't necessarily, those guys that are trying to make money, that's one thing. The guys that are just out there to be malicious, that's a whole other thing. They don't care who they impact. They don't care what they're touching. If they find a vulnerable IP address, they're going to do everything they can to direct effect onto that target. It doesn't matter where it's at or who it is.
Right. So I think the three of us all agree on that point of it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what color you are, what political party you like, who your favorite sports team is, okay? It doesn't matter. I live in Cleveland, okay? We're not going to win anything ever again. They still want to hack me and see if they can get some Bitcoin. Doesn't matter. Now, Yates Networks has also said, I wouldn't expect to be profitable on Green Cloud Defense. I want to keep losses minimal. I think people expect far too much, honestly. I don't even know where to begin with that. Yates, you're better than that, first of all. I think as IT people, we need to stop looking at ourselves as, the computer guy and start looking at ourselves as, the computer surgeon. Okay, you're not just the guy that you take the car to fix the brakes. You're the professional. You're not the blue collar plumber. You're like a lawyer. You're like a doctor or a surgeon. You should demand $100 or more an hour. First of all, if you look at what lawyers charge, some of the best lawyers are like $800 an hour, right? $1,000 an hour. Depending on where you're at, they might even be more, $1,500 if you're over in like DC, right? So why can't IT people demand higher rates? Because they should. And if everyone were to say, hey, look, here's what I'm offering you. This is what it costs. It costs me money to provide these services, and I've got to eat too. So how do you guys help MSPs sell your service? Because nobody should have this type of mindset when it comes to security.
I will echo your comments 100%. As businesses have evolved, their reliance on technology to run their underlying business has grown substantially. And the IT professionals who are supporting them are no longer, as you said, fixing a computer. They're enabling their business. And their business does not function if their IT needs are not met. And that's, that is part and parcel to business now. And, yes, you still have people who, try to, spend as little as possible on IT from an end customer standpoint. But as an MSP community, you are vital to enabling businesses to operate in this day and time. And so I think, we preach that message a lot. Don't sell yourself short. If you've established good rapport with your end customers, they will rely on you heavily for decisions that affect their business, not just their technology needs. And when you look at products like security services, we think there should be, decent margin or good margin in these services. because there's limited investment, upfront investment from the MSP, and so if you can get 20 to 30% margin, that greatly aids in the cash flow because there was no monetary expenditure to get that business. It's typically sold to an existing customer as opposed to a brand new engagement, and so your cost of acquisition is low. If you look at the newspaper or media, it is a selling tool for security services today, because very rarely do you open the Wall Street Journal and people have, is there not something in there with a security slant to it, somebody getting compromised, a municipality, an enterprise, small business ransomware attacks. And from that standpoint, I think there's definitely the ability to command a margin when you take these services out.
And along with that, I think I'm reading kind of some of the comments. He says he's still shifting into MSP work out of break fix. This is a perfect opportunity to do that because you don't have to have the skill set. You don't have to have a big bench behind you, because you can utilize these services to offer this enterprise class level of service to your customers that you're one guy, you're two guys. You can offer the same level of service that the 30 employee, 50 employee MSP is offering to their to their customers and make profit on that as well, right?
So he said he's offering service plans on block time pricing, and I actually go watch the episode from time flies when you're having coronavirus pandemic, right? So was it last week or the week before where I sat down with James Vickery? You can even listen to it on the podcast networks, guys. Just look up the RocketMSP Podcast, and you'll see the cartoon of me and James Vickery. And we talk about pricing. And Yates, that is one that I really think you should be listening to, because we talk about pricing and selling. And then go back a few weeks before that and listen to the one with Paul Green, where we talk about marketing. Another great episode for you to listen to or watch on YouTube. YouTube has ads. Podcast probably doesn't. Who knows what those platforms do, right? But I don't put any ads on the podcast. On YouTube, I am 100% monetizing everything. I make literally dozens of dollars. It's amazing. So, all right. So, yeah, hey, it's mailbox money, right?
Right.
So I think we all agree on the concept of our value. Now, what does Green Cloud Defense do to help the MSPs sell Green Cloud Defense?
So from a selling standpoint, we have an entire onboarding team that walks through customer profiles. We provide collateral material. We provide battle cards against competitors that are out there. We basically arm the MSPs with an entire campaign they can roll out to their end user base as part of the service.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that includes co-branded materials, marketing materials, things like that, right?
That's perfect.
So that they can utilize the marketing team that we have built and utilize that to their advantage.
And in early, the early part of the relationship, we'll have people who will co-sell with them. So we'll provide expertise on the phone with their end customers from a support perspective, both sales and sales engineering resources as necessary.
All right. Now, if we have somebody here that goes, I'm interested in learning more, they can just go to greenclouddefense.com.
That's correct.
greenclouddefense.com. All right. Now, what does it cost to become a partner?
So we have a minimum engagement, and so there's a partner recruitment specialist that will work with you, look at your customer base with you, and then come up with a minimum engagement that we would start the relationship with.
Okay.
And it can be as low as, I think, $500 a month. So, I mean, it's
Okay.
not a significant barrier to entry. Obviously, as you spend more, your prices get a little better. There's a full partner program that allows, commitments, upwards of $10,000 a month if you have a base that can grow to that. And so, we can take on any size MSP.
So here's the one thing that I think really grinds all the MSP's gears, right? Why have minimums? Because, gosh, you're just pricing yourself out of reach to many of these smaller MSPs. Because, I mean, think there are MSPs out there that are currently generating between 60,000 and 100,000 in gross revenue. And like, we're not even talking about what the net profit is for them after they pay for everything, right? Some of these guys are only paying themselves 25,000 to 40,000 a year on a good year, right? So for you to say all I need is a minimum of $6,000 from you a year, I mean that's
just getting 1 to 2 customers to convert the service. And so that's not paying to be a partner. That's just revenue sold to your end customer.
Well, okay, so then let me rephrase the question. So when I said how much does it cost to become a partner, so let's say I get on the phone with you guys, I like what I hear, I want to move forward, and I want to figure out how to use you and sell this to my customers. You're going to sit down and you're going to help me put together a plan and market this to my existing customers before I have to give you any money then?
Yes.
Okay. And then once I bring on a couple customers, let's say the first customer is 150 and the second customer is 300, I just have to pay the extra 50 out of pocket then?
Correct.
Okay.
But we'll give you a time period to get there. So we don't expect you to have customers day one.
Okay.
There's a ramp involved in that whole process to make sure that,
Okay.
I mean, it's mutual success, right?
Sure.
We're successful when our partners are successful. So we want to do everything we can to get there.
And I can appreciate that. I just know that some people hear that number and they'll go, I'll never get there. Why would I don't even spend that much on my RMM. Why would I spend $500 on this stupid security thing? And they'll just write it off completely.
That there may be some. There may be. But when you look at, a specific end user, I mean, guys, like we're speaking with Yates Networks, I mean, if you go to a customer and you convince one of your customers or two of your customers that they need a security suite, you've basically hit the minimum commitment that you need. And maybe it doesn't make sense to have a formal partnership until one of your customers is ready. But yeah, I mean, we think the small to medium business community needs security services. I think you echoed that, and it's incumbent on the MSPs as their technology consultant to spend the time to convince them that they have to open up their spend to encompass some type of security solution. And sometimes that's not an easy task.
No, it really isn't. Well, gentlemen, I thank you both for coming on here and answering all my questions and letting me beat you up a little bit. Is there anything that you wanted to go over and maybe I didn't ask you about?
No, I mean, we welcome, please, give us a call, contact us, let us tell you more about the solutions in depth, both the hosting and the security suites, and we'd love to walk everyone through the partner program and the benefits that come along with working with Green Cloud Defense.
Perfect.
Absolutely. thanks for the time, and yeah, reach out in any fashion. We're here to help. So let us know.
All right. Well, with that said, I'm going to let you gentlemen go. There's no point in milking this and dragging it along, right? So thanks so much. For those of you watching live, thanks for watching. Again, check out the podcast. We're now on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google. I think I'm on Pandora, iHeartRadio. Like, there's a big stupid list of all these things. It's all syndicated, so I only have to upload it once. It's great. And tomorrow I have 2 episodes. I'm meeting with Raphael again from Adea. I always want to say Adia because that's how it's spelled, but it's Adea Security. And then I am also meeting with Justin Esker tomorrow. And we're going to just talk about his MSP, and he wrote a children's book and all kinds of other cool stuff. So, yeah, hopefully I'll see some of you guys tomorrow, and you all enjoy yourselves. A wonderful day. Go enjoy. Hopefully you have some sun outside. High of 68 today here in Ohio. So go outside and enjoy it, everybody.
Awesome.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Take care, guys. Thanks again.